Hey guys, what's up? Today is December the 6th. Some very interesting news are breaking. Mavuso Msimang, or Mavuso Msimang, of the African National Congress has resigned after 6 decades. I only have one question for him. What took you so long? What took you so long? Let's read the letter. Dear Secretary General, it is with profound sadness that I inform you of my decision to terminate my membership of the African National Congress. I have served the organization loyally and diligently for over 6 decades. For several years now, the ANC has been wrecked by endemic corruption with devastating consequences on the governance of the country and the lives of the poor people, of whom there continue to be so many. Of course, the ANC did not invent corruption. We inherited a state that was morally bankrupt, that was built on the most profound forms of corruption. When we took over government in 1994, we had the moral high ground and the conviction that we would be able to root out the old boy networks that had benefited from and strangled the apartheid economy. Yet 3 decades later, the ANC's own track record of corruption is a cause of great shame. The corruption we once decried is now part of our movement's DNA. This has had dire consequences for the most vulnerable members of our society. Over 4 million people live in shacks that are euphemistically referred to as informal settlements. And in every town, there are people whom we call beggars, who collect at traffic lights and in town squares. They are not beggars, of course, for that is not their identity. They are human beings who have been forced to sacrifice their dignity, in part because of my party's successive failures. We are an organization that purports to create a better life for all. A new black middle class has grown and developed, which is commendable. However, this middle class is leaving behind people who die before ambulances can reach them or perish in the hallways of overflowing, under-resourced public hospitals. As ANC leaders publicly proclaim ownership of obscenely wealthy homesteads and other possessions and send their children to the best schools in the land, there are still many South Africans whose children continue to be exposed to the risk of dropping into pit latrines in poor-equipped public schools and dying horrendous and humiliating deaths. There are children in rural areas who miss classes when streams and rivers are in flood because there are no bridges. How does it come about that raw sewage flows into Umgeni River and into the sea, polluting eThekwini beaches that has been a traditional holiday destination for black people from inland provinces, some of whom used to travel as far as north of Limpopo, northwest Mpumalanga, etc.? For what earthly reason did Gauteng of health think that frail, elderly, and very vulnerable people should be sent to ill-equipped, ill-prepared, and ill-funded houses under the guise of unqualified NGOs, resulting in the death of some 160 people, as happened in the Esidimeni life scandal? Businesses are failing, downsizing, or simply deciding not to invest anymore in our country where the environment has become entirely disabling for them. As a result, thousands of jobs are being lost at a time when unemployment rate ranges north of 32% and 60% of persons aged between 15 and 24. Inexplicably, you have ministers who attack the very private sector. The president is inviting to be an essential part of social compact in a program to rebuild our economy and enable higher growth. He's talking about the lady that I criticized in my last video, Javeni. You do not need to dig too deeply to discover that most of our country's failures are linked to the corruption somewhere in the system. A tender that should never have been awarded, a job that should have gone to a better qualified, more deserving, and less factionally aligned person. This is happening on the watch of the ANC government. ESCOM, brought to its knees by high-level corruption and sabotage, has literally rendered the nation powerless and all too often left in the dark. I want to read that again. An ESCOM brought to its knees by high-level corruption and sabotage has literally rendered the nation powerless and all too often left in the dark. Transnet's mismanagement has derailed its freight haulage system. In consequence, road transporters who have stepped into the breach sometimes have to wait 40 kilometers long queues while belching noxious gases into the atmosphere because ports are congested. The resulting demurrage charges are inevitable, ultimately borne by the consumer. And the worst may yet happen, ships simply avoiding our ports and discharging their cargo in better run ports elsewhere. The litany of economic and social woes, crime, unemployment, destitution associated with my beloved African National Congress is not only embarrassing but also defies enumeration. My goodness. I can't agree with him more. My only question still is, why did it take him so long? Maybe because he's older than me and therefore he was counting the service he served in the African National Congress. But as young as I am, what to call from him, I've been a member of the African National Congress for a very, very long time. Okay? But nevertheless, I obviously also did exactly what he did some few years ago, a good 10 years or so ago. That's the point. Why did it take so long? Because we could see that the African National Congress is no longer the same. Let's continue with his letter. It is a matter of public record that for over a decade I have added my voice to many others that have consistently decried and disapproved of corruption and its harmful byproducts of nepotism and incompetence. The response of leadership to this constructive censure has at best been a shoulder shrug and a promise to do something about it. At worst, those who seek change by raising voices endure slurs or are met with a downright hostility, which is exactly what has happened recently when Balula was saying that they do not appreciate as the leadership of the ANC, that the elderly should criticize them publicly. I mean, really, can you imagine? The Constitution says these people have a freedom of expression, and the African National Congress wants to stop people's freedom of expression simply because it deviates from, or rather, it's a criticism. It deviates from what they would want to hear. Despite the failures of the ANC and the manifold malfeasances referred to above, I am heartened that the South African spirit is alive and well. It is evident in the entrepreneurs found in every township and community who manage to survive despite the barriers. You see it when you look at organizations like Gift of the Givers, which has become a global force for good. It is demonstrated in the creative talent of new generation that is earning accolades on stages in every genre from opera to photography and comedy, and who cannot notice the wonder of Amapiano, whose pioneers are generating joy and resources with their uniquely South African outlook. Alas, despite these and other glimmering flashes of positivity, the ANC is on the verge of losing power. This is not because a Zulweni Investment, a small company from Newcastle, got a rate of attachment against ANC for 150 million and the High Court Sheriff has been to Lutuli House to attach immovable property. It is because, as its own posters have warned, the ANC is currently falling significantly short of securing outright victory during the next year's elections. This dramatic decline in the organization's popularity is attributable to widely held perceptions that its members and employees are corrupt. It's actually not a perception, it's a reality. That the organization has high tolerance threshold for venality, and that the deployment of unsuitable people accounts for government's deplorable levels of service levels to the public. And that's also true. To address these societal perceptions, the ANC Veterans League, in resolution passed at its conference and its Let me read that again. To address these societal perceptions, the ANC Veterans League, in a resolution passed at its conference and in decisions subsequently taken at the League's successive National Executive Committee meetings, urged the leadership of the organization to ensure that members who have been accused of criminality or recommended for referral to criminal justice institutions by commissions set up to investigate corruption should not be allowed to continue in office. The Veterans League specifically recommended that such individuals be considered ineligible for nomination to represent the ANC in the 2024 national and provincial elections. Unfortunately, ANC NEC has shown no urgency to deal with this matter. I mean, why would they? All of them are what to call alleged to have some sort of corruption. All, not a single one of them is clean. From the head, the president, to the least of them. Consequently, I have come to the realization that my time and energies would be better spent elsewhere. Even as I painfully sever ties with my once glorious organization, I shall continue to give a vigil over any and all matters pertaining to governance in the country. It is not easy to leave an organization that continues to be home to some of the most dedicated individuals I have had good fortune, honor, and privilege to call comrades. But it is time to go. Sincere regards, Mavuso Msimang, citizens of South Africa. Citizen of South Africa, since 6th of December. So the letter was written today. It's a very detailed letter, very insightful, and it talks to some of the issues that I've spoken about in a different video. Perhaps I should say my last two videos, where I spoke about what the president was accusing us of, that we have a good story to tell. Mavuso Msimang addresses those issues here, where I spoke about the last video where I spoke about ArcelorMittal, the transport scandal or logistics scandal that we're experiencing throughout the country because of Transnet, and the president's going there, coming back with a story that really does not augur well with reality, where he says that problem will be resolved within a space of 60 days, really, because it points to February. You can say 90 days if you consider that we are in early December, but take away 15 days in December from the 15th when people go to their respective holidays. The point, though, is this. The president made a promise there, which is contrary to a promise that the CEO of that organization, that is Transnet, Andile Sano, testified to in his Cape Talk interview, which was 2 days later after the president, where he said that no short-term solutions should be anticipated by society. That is very contrary to what the president had said 2 days before that. And he also touches on this misplaced militancy by Njaveni, of just, when I was younger, and in the what we call youth league of this very ANC. In fact, it was much even before that. We were in the what we call in COSAS. We had a president at that time who would say concerning us when we were ill-disciplined, or when he perceived that we were behaving in a manner that was not befitting the organization, he would say, comrades, it is very, very important that we hold the decorum of the organization. Some of you are behaving like loose cannons, mushrooming from nowhere. It cannot be correct, comrades. I'm not going to tell you his name, though, and if he ever listens to this, he would know who he is. He would say, some of you, even worse than loose cannons, you are like unguided missiles. But nevertheless, those were the days when we were younger and our brain was not fully developed and we were at varsity. And so we reasoned along these ways. But nevertheless, we obviously have a good story to tell, because we didn't steal money, we did not partake in corruption, and we were highly disciplined. And we subsequently, all of us, became professionals in our respective endeavors. That is why we can steadfastly oppose the corruption that we see. You see, we can steadfastly, not because we have not participated in our struggle, we have. However, there are people here who go around who want us to reward them for liberating us, as though we were sitting, folding our arms and watching them liberating us. Right? And the way they are so entitled in their mind, it explains also the degree of the rot and the extent to which they are willing to go to. I mean, imagine a man like Mavuso, who have served as long as he has, to listen to a young man like Fikile Mbalula. Fikile Mbalula is a young man compared to what we call Mavuso. Now, he listens to a young man called Fikile Mbalula criticizing the very fact that he, as Mavuso or Thabo Mbeki, has said something against the African National Congress publicly, and therefore he is now seeking to scold these old people because in his mind they are out of order. Meanwhile, they are the ones who are out of order, who are out of tune with the pulse of the people. The African National Congress has long been hijacked by a group of populists who are bloodthirsty and very greedy for money. If you look at the murder rate of our country, I cannot get over this. So I'm going to repeat this until people understand what does it mean to have a murder rate like the murder rate we have in this country. We don't have a declared war. Our murder rate is more than any other country save for 3 countries. We are number 3rd in the world, the 3rd highest murder rate country in the world. How is that acceptable when we don't have a war? We have what we call the highest rape in the world, right? How is that acceptable in a country that claims to respect women's rights? We have sewage pouring into the Vaal River in KZN into the what we call the sea, and he mentioned Umgeni River. How is that possible? I'll tell you why it's possible. It's called cadre deployment. It's called affirmative action. It's called employment equity. That's how it is possible. Now you can deny it, you can be angry, you can call me all names. I've had all names. Make no mistake about it. And I have a seriously thick skin for name calling. It means absolutely zero to me. I will not become what you call me simply because you called me whatever. So I understand fully. Remember, I also grew up in the ANC, but I have also outgrown the ANC by reason of the principles that my parents entrenched in me. Okay? It is not right to take that which does not belong to you. It is not right to steal. It is not right to treat people differently and put them on scales. Some of the things that happens in the public sector when it comes to employment, they are ludicrous. Just look at the Zondo reports. Look at the labor relations issues that the different bargaining councils are dealing with. It would quite interest you if you like reading. Just go through the reports in the labor courts. Look at the backlog that the labor courts have. It's because the comrades are not only mistreating their current what we call current employees and segregating against people, but they are so brutal in their approach. In you simply disagree with them, you are fired. Remember the video that I made where Mamuluku Kupai fired a woman simply because that woman did not respond quickly enough, according to her, to rescue her from a stuck lift, even falsely accused her of not maintaining the lifts. This is how they behave. They want to be treated as kings and queens. They forget the very people who elected them. So I love how he worded his letter, because his letter deals with all these what you call issues, and he does acknowledge there are too many to list for an organization that was as disciplined with all its errors as what the ANC under Thabo Mbeki was. That he was able to send to jail Jackie Silebi. He was able, of course, when I'm saying he, under his presidency, he was able to send to dismiss Jacob Zuma as his deputy president. He was able to get Winnie Madikizela Mandela convicted for fraud as well as theft, even though the theft was later, when she appealed the matter, was removed, and then she was given a shorter sentence, a shorter suspended sentence by the Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court of Appeals. But the point is that she was convicted, and many people do not know these things. So when Ndate Mavuso looks at this, he's saying literally, the problem now is actually the African National Congress. Because if you thought that African National Congress under Zuma was corrupt, which it was, by the way, make no mistake about it, it was. However, if you thought they were corrupt, open up your eyes and look at what Ramaphosa is doing. Ramaphosa has literally captured all the oversight structures of government, such that there's no public protector that's going to speak against him. There's no NPA head that's going to prosecute him. He employed Batohi. Therefore, Batohi feels that she owes Ramaphosa something. And the evidence of that was this Palapala report, where a judge, together with two advocates, came up with a decision and presented it to Parliament, and that the president has an answer to give. And these are some of the things that Mavuso has criticized. How he didn't write that in the letter. He probably forgot about it, or as he said, there were too many to count. But these are some of the things that he has criticized publicly. How is the African National Congress going to go to Parliament and use its majority given to it by people of South Africa so that the president, to prevent the president from accounting to the very people? So the president now has become greater than the people, or the organization has become greater than the people who have elected it. And this whole notion of being greater than the people, the ANC being greater than the country, as much as I have affinity for Mbeki, I literally saw this in Mandela. When he would make statements like this, the first thing he would do when he gets to heaven, he would look for the offices of the ANC. And I would jokingly say, that's how I know he's not going to heaven. Now, don't hold me to that. That was a joke, okay? I don't know where he is. But the point is that I would normally say that's how I know he would not go to heaven, because there is no ANC offices in heaven. Nevertheless, because if there is a heaven, there can't be anything corrupt in heaven. Remember that. Corrupt things do not enter therein. The ANC is cancer. It's corrupt to the core. Then it proceeded to Mbeki. When you look at Mbeki, Mbeki resigned because he esteemed the ANC above the country. I remember very well Helen Zille in Parliament appealing to him to say, yes, you may have been elected by the ANC to be in to be the president of the ANC, but to be the president of the country, you were elected by this Parliament, including opposition parties. Therefore, if the ANC is saying you resign, you can continue to finish your term. And the point that Zille was driving home there was, it's fine for you to resign as an ANC head, but surely you can't resign as a president to allow the very guy whom you have dismissed to ascend to become a president. Continue with the prosecution authority to prosecute this individual. And had that happened, that would have been the end of Jacob Zuma. And that would have been the end of this big mouth boy of the Red Party as well. Because he also has a lot of skeletons that he has been protected by Zuma from. And many people ask, if these things were true, why is he not in jail? He's not in jail because he's been protected on those things, for the same reason why Zuma is not in jail. Nevertheless, it's quite refreshing to see what Mavuso has written here. But as a former member of the ANC myself, I ask a question. Why did you wait for so long? Because the African National Congress did not start yesterday to be corrupt. There are one too many scandals. And good people, you really have to wake up. I mean it. I mean, VW was telling us just last week how much that they are spending on diesel because of this load shedding. It's not acceptable. VW employs so many people, and if they do disinvest, what's going to happen to those people? And it seems as though when you look at the current crop of the ANC, they don't care. They really don't care. So I'm quite heartened by the fact that Mavuso reconciled himself to the fact that I cannot die in this corrupt party. I have to take a stance. You know, when some of us took that stance because we're not that popular, you get the point? We didn't have his office. We didn't. So people say, no, it's cold outside the ANC. You will not succeed in anything that you're going to do without the ANC. It's the same nonsense today that you hear from both the ANC and the EFF. Such arrogance. Nevertheless, he says, Mavuso, though, when he looks He even touches on the fact that the ANC is now owing what we call 150 million to Ezulu in investments. And still they are unwilling to pay that, meaning the ANC is not only corrupt, they have, I mean, to be lawless, that's corruption. I was going to say they are not only corrupt, but they are a lawless organization. They are lawless. They don't respect, as a matter of fact, many of the accounting officers who are appointed by the ANC don't respect the law at all. There's one now, no, that's a different matter altogether, so it's not applicable here. But nevertheless, I'm quite heartened by this letter. You can comment down below to tell me what you think about it. He's touched on a number of issues which affect our country. Yes, he did indicate that he may not touch on all of them. Otherwise, the letter would have been much, much, much longer than this if that, and that was not his intention. His intention was to simply say, as a truthful, as an honest South African, South Africa comes first. Our people comes first. Their poverty is something we have to deal with. And you know what? I honor such a man. No, he may have taken long, but he did wake up. Now, there are some who think that he's going to join EFF. That is impossible. There's no man of integrity who will ever resign from ANC and join EFF. That's not going to happen. Never, ever, ever, ever. Why? EFF is a youth league of the ANC. And they are carrying exactly the same traits of the ANC. There's no difference. It's such that they are more radical. I call the ANC EFF light, but there's no difference between the two. In terms of policy, in terms of corruption, absolutely no difference. Don't be deceived by Malema's big mouth. Do not be deceived by Malema's big mouth at all. I mean, to be deceived by Malema's big mouth is equivalent to being deceived by Cyril's big mouth, who can come and tell us that we have to celebrate our country and not bad-mouth it and compares us to China. Can you imagine that? China that does not have a freedom of speech. China that does not have human rights. China that does not have the type of labor relations that we have. China that does not have a right to inherent dignity that must be respected and protected. This man is comparing us to that country. Can you imagine that? And the reason why they are doing that is because they are communists. Make no mistake about it. There is a hegemony amongst communists from the east to the west, north to the south. Okay, guys, that's it. As far as I'm concerned, it's a very interesting letter. There's lots of insights here. And this letter, by the way, debunks the entire theory of Paul Mashatile, where he says they are the ANC of Nelson Mandela. This letter debunks all of that by simply giving facts, by not living in a delusional vacuum. I kind of like what he wrote here. We are going to use it, its extracts, because he simply confirms the things that we have been saying, that the ANC has been denying as though these are allegations that are unfounded. No, everything we say, we have researched it. We don't just speak out of 10 to make allegations against the ANC or any other political party. You get the point? If we say the DA is corrupt or the DA is out of order on a particular issue, they are out of order in a particular issue. You struggle to find corruption in the DA. The only thing that you may find that the DA is being accused of is what we call racism. Corruption, no, you struggle to find it in the DA. The DA, in terms of governance, they really walk the talk. They really walk their talk. They don't just speak and not do. The African National Congress are very good at speaking and simply doing the opposite. And they simply think that that's leadership, particularly their president. Okay, guys, that's it. As far as I'm concerned, this is a very, very good ammunition. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to remind these liars that wait a minute. Remember now, the things that we say have now been further verified by a 6-decade member of the African National Congress. Okay, now if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do, and share the message with as many as possible. And remember to beware of what? The communists. Okay, we have a country to save from these communists. And remember, it doesn't matter what the name of the organization is. As long as it subscribes to communism, we have to destroy that evil. Have a lovely day. Ciao, ciao.